Hello, this is George Smith with another installation of On the Money. Today we're going to be looking at what Ben Bernanke had to say to George Washington University students on March 20th, 2012. On that date, he had some things to say about the gold standard. Let's listen.
What a gold standard is a monetary system in which the value of the currency is fixed in terms of gold. So, for example, by law, in the early 20th century, the price of gold was set at $20.67 an ounce. There were central banks that helped manage the gold standard, but to a significant extent, a true gold standard creates an automatic monetary system.
Chairman Bernanke's description is accurate when applied to the classical gold standard, which existed in the 19th and early 20th century. But what he's trying to describe, as I understand it, is a gold standard. And a true gold standard is characterized by an absence of coercion. If we go back far enough in time, we find that people began trading with one another through barter, and eventually discovered the benefits of indirect exchange. And when indirect exchange matured, we find that we have money in the form of gold and silver. Originally, private firms, people, individuals, minted their own coins, and so that circulated throughout society. That would be a gold standard. The definition then would be the amount of gold, the weight of the gold in that society. That would be the gold standard. Government, of course, eventually seized control of the minting process and determined that the coins would be issued by them and them only. In other words, they established a monopoly. The point to remember about the earliest gold standards were that the only currency that existed were the gold coins or silver coins themselves. To say that there was a fixed relationship between the currency and the gold, therefore, makes very little sense. Only much later in time can we assert that there was a fixed relationship, only because government had started issuing their own paper currencies that were supposed to be backed up by gold, which, of course, we know were not. But at least the pretense was that there was a fixed relationship between any bill issued by the government to the actual gold on hand. And that relationship was, in terms of the monetary units of the government established, roughly $20.67. It's also important to note that until government intervened, people established prices, ratios between gold and the things they wanted to buy, in terms of the weight of the metal itself, grams or ounces. Only when government intervened do we have these things like dollars and cents telling us what in the world things are worth. Of course, when we get used to saying things in dollars and cents, we don't necessarily refer to gold, and that made it easier for government to remove gold from the scene altogether. Now, why would government want to do that? First, consider what government is. It's a force, it's a coercive agency. It does not get its wealth by producing something. It gets it by stealing, expropriation. It taxes and it also inflates. But inflation is not understood by most people. And it has developed, it has become more and more subtle over the years. Originally, it was merely a form of debasing the coins of the realm, which government had a monopoly on. And then as paper began to be used as substitutes for money kept in vaults, they could issue, through the banking system, more notes than there were actually gold or silver on deposit. And the government could keep that money and use it to fight wars or reward friends or whatever they wanted to do with it. And they retained power. And meanwhile, the value of the currency depreciated, and people didn't understand why, or some people did, but most people didn't. And governments just grew and grew, and that's the way it worked. In the 20th century, however, all this became very scientific. It was no longer a cheat when government inflated. It was the way to keep prices stable, or as a way to avoid severe unemployment, or to revive an economy after it crashed. Well, they should go back and look and see why the economy crashed in the first place. It has to do with inflation. When you inflate the currency, when you issue false receipts to money, you send misdirections. You create malinvestments, as it's called. And these malinvestments have to be resolved sooner or later. And that sooner or later comes when the economy tanks. And the only way to revive the economy permanently is to let things play out, let companies go bankrupt. Of course, that's not what we do.
On the practical side, there's just a simple fact that there's not enough gold to meet the needs of a global gold standard. And achieving that much gold would be very expensive.
To say that there's not enough gold in the world today to serve as a monetary system reflects a misunderstanding of the nature of money. Money is used only in exchange. If you increase the amount of money, all you do is raise prices eventually and create these misallocations, malinvestments. It also makes it difficult, more and more difficult, for people to participate in the market's bounty. But increasing the amount of money tends to reward the first users of that money. So the government, the banks, they benefit from inflation, but the rest of us don't. Keep that in mind when you listen to anyone criticizing gold as an old-fashioned barbarous relic that we shouldn't be using anymore. If you're interested in reading more about money and how government has influenced it, managed it, to use Ben Bernanke's word, I can't recommend too highly Murray Rothbard's book, What Has Government Done to Our Money? You can download it for free from Mises Institute, or you can purchase it in paperback, and I think it's available as an e-book as well. If you care to read about money and the Fed in fictional form, try my book, The Flight of the Barbarous Relic, which is about a renegade Fed chairman who attempts to undermine the very system he was head of. So, anyhow, for now, so long, and I'll see you soon.